Good day, good day, good day. I am finally getting myself up and at it all ready for this Saturday morning. I am hoping that all of you out there are excited to get started on your day. Please enjoy the coffee being made on screen and get your coffee up and ready because what we're going to try to do, as always, in support of the family Sussex, I want you to join me on this channel as we discuss, hopefully, from a point of view of moms of adult children, for example, like myself, how to support the Duke and Duchess of Success, that is Harry and Meghan Markle. Um, in all of the trials and the hurdles that they are facing in these days. So take a moment, enjoy what you see on screen, the lovely coffee, the creamy coffee that's being made for this morning. Get yourself a moment to sit back and relax while we go over a little bit of things that have happened over the past week or so. Now, for those of you who are paying attention, yes, I did miss last weekend giving an update, but that's because I was traveling. I enjoyed a trip, a road trip, long, riding all through the Tennessee Valley area, Virginia, and areas of Washington, D.C., where I had a great time touring around some of the places that I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. in the late 80s. So that'll give you an idea of perhaps my age, but I'm not going to tell. So you will have to figure it out on your own. Now, with that being said, I encourage everyone, if you get a chance to travel up that way, get out and enjoy some of the things that can be seen at many of the Smithsonian museums. It's quite lovely, but you definitely have to be ready to walk a bit, and there are numerous exhibits and things to see, from the science museums to the natural history museums. And now they have added libraries also in those areas, and it is lovely to view. So I'm hoping that each of you will get a chance to run in and around and enjoy some of your time there. Now, I am about to get kind of set up here, somewhat organized, and you all know how I, as a new YouTuber, as people will say, as I am coming to the YouTube streets, I am slowly gathering myself together on how to get organized in this space. But I tell you what, I'm enjoying what I'm finding out. So as you get your coffee ready and sit down, we're going to talk about some of the things that were going on with the Sussex family. Now, remember, I always put out that we are also fitness conscious, especially as we get older. We want to make sure we keep up our walking, light exercise, and as my doctor has employed me to do, is to attempt to add a little bit of weight training to my weekly activity list. I've been told that as we get older, that weight training seems to help a little bit with muscle, keeping the muscles in check, and a little bit of muscle development. So I did that. I'm always happy to do cardio, like walking and things like that. Have been fine with me, but lately I do find that strength training, just to be able to pick up that grocery bag, that seems to be helpful. So I encourage all of you to do the same. I am going to report that I was able to get in a couple of steps this week and I did pretty well. So I'm looking forward to all of you. Feel free to type in how you're doing or how you're coming along, how many steps you might have conquered this week. And let's see if we can start to get a little contest going among our listeners. I would love to hear that. And then we will start to incorporate how everyone is doing on their weekly exercise. All right. So, with that being said, if I have my slides prepared properly, and I cannot guarantee it, but we're going to see, I'm going to attempt to bring my slides up, and we're going to get to talking about what we saw over the past week or two. All right, all right. Now, if you can see this photo here, we of course pointed out this is the lovely Miss Doria Ragland, Meghan Markle's mother, and the opportunity for her to attend the wedding, and how it seemed the then Prince Charles, who is now King of all England, was so helpful, attentive, supportive to Meghan and Miss Doria Ragland. You know, these photos give you the warm feeling inside that he is such a lovely man. He's so kind and supportive, and that he would just do anything to ensure the happiness and future of the wonderful marriage between Harry and Meghan. At least that's where this photo leaves you. Don't you feel warm just looking at it? And the wonderful thing is you can feel warm looking at that without having any idea what the possible reality might be in the hearts and minds of these people. You know, you don't even need to know that. So I would like to encourage, while you're thinking about that, it's just another testament to what I have been going over and talking about over the past few days, weeks, when we're talking about media, and we're talking about advertising, and we're talking about what it is in the media and advertising, how it is used to influence what you think and feel about situations in particular. So again, like this photo here, it's supposed to elicit from you that then Prince Charles, currently King Charles, has put out so much warmth and so much support that you just can't help yourself but believe that this is a wonderful and supportive man. I mean, he is wonderful and supportive, right? So that is, of course, the advertising featured in a photo like this, and that is why you saw photos like this plastered all over during the wedding. So now we speed forward. And as we are speeding forward, we're now launching into what is happening in their world currently. What's going on now behind the scenes? You know, what is this family actually dealing with? And that's where things are going to get tricky. Now, as many of you are aware, we have seen some of the issues going on now with the current court case. Okay? So now we are aware that what we're aware of now is that Harry had arrived over the past couple of weeks. He arrived in England to participate in what they are calling, what is referred to from the English law as his deposition. And how things work in England is terribly different from how it would operate in the United States. There are some subtle differences. And some of these things definitely involve the difference between, of course, how we handle certain civil cases. That means cases that are not involving criminality, and how they're talked about. So when we're dealing with criminality in the U.S., you have that proof, evidence, and then you have to do things beyond a reasonable doubt, like, it's reasonably close. This case, however, is considered a civil case, and from English perspective, it sort of has to lean more 50-50. So it just has to lean a little bit more to his side than it does to the other person's side, as it is involving whether something is believed or not. And so this case sort of involves a situation where the discussion is, do we believe what Harry is saying or do we not? And that's kind of the court case, the crux of the court case. And so you have to understand that from the British perspective, it's not that Harry could just simply say, okay, this is what happened to me. These people were wiretapping or surveilling me, and I want them to be punished for it or held liable or in whatever area that they should be responsible for what they have done and um, subject to some criminal charge or civil charge. So actually, what happens in their world is that he basically has to be the one with the proponent of information. That means the majority of the information. He has to be the one with irrefutable proof, in a sense. He is the one that would have to come to the court with irrefutable proof that what he is actually saying is the truth. So a statement like, Joe Smith was listening in on my phone calls. A simple statement like Joe Smith is listening to my phone calls is, in from the British point of view, it's simply just your statement. However, you, as the person who feels to be the victim, you have to have the proof that Joe listened in on your phone calls. So how do you do that? How do you prove that Joe listened in on your phone calls? Especially if Joe says, I did not do it, right? So this is where Harry is caught in this particular instance. He's caught in this system where he has to prove the crime that has happened to him. And we all know how difficult that is, because what you're going to need are witnesses, right? So you're in a situation where if you're on a phone call, generally, when you're talking to someone on a phone call or you're having an intimate conversation with a loved one, family member, girlfriend, boyfriend, you're generally not having that conversation around witnesses, right? And even if you were, they wouldn't be privy to whether someone else is listening in on your call. Now, today, that's a little bit more difficult, right? I mean, today, of course, I can sit in a room, put people on speakerphone, and have a full-blown conversation so everyone can participate. But he's talking about a period of time where that was not the common thing to do. All right. So that's where he is. So in his attempt to point this out and to prove this situation, he is basically referencing the topics or specific sentences that might have been said in a conversation that he had with someone in private, and the fact that maybe the next day or a few days later, the details of that conversation, including specific statements, might be then seen in a news article. So he is trying to infer, and that is the key word that the legal team is utilizing. He is attempting to infer that the accusation that he's making, that he can tell you, hey, I had a conversation, it was an intense conversation, it was only with this person, and I may have made a statement that was, a cute quip or rude comment, and it was a specific comment made to a specific person. However, that specific statement showed up in a newspaper article the next day or several days later. All right? So that's how things are working in the British system. Now, for those of you who are following all of the other squatties out there, and I'm trying to get there because I love the squatties who have the bigger channels. I mean, they're going through some things and digging super, super deep. I'm, however, kind of skating over the surface and kind of looking at it again as if I'm a mom at home and I'm just watching this, from a distance. But there are things that stick out to me, certain words. So, like I said, that was the inference of this case, and that is how this case sort of works. All right, now, let's look at a couple of things that are intertwined in this situation. I know you all who are the super squatties. For super squatties, you know what I'm talking about. For those who are kind of new and new to my channel, listen. There are two characters in in the British media right now. Mr. Phil Schofield, who is battling the fact that he was released from his position as a morning show host. And that's due to the fact that he had what appears to be an inappropriate relationship with a young man. Basically, he knew a young man from the time he was maybe age 11 or 12. And then this young man was offered positions at his workplace, which is the morning show. And later on, they ended up in a relationship when the boy was about 20. So this has got a lot of people all up in arms as they discuss, oh my gosh, this sounds like a grooming situation. Well, it might be. But anyway, that's one thing. Now, the name that I gave you, Mr. Philip Schofield, is a proponent of, he's a key personality that, on his shows, they would generally have their moment of Harry and Meghan criticism, right? But now that he is in that same hot seat, the seat has been flipped, and he's sitting in the position where people are running him down for his behavior. Now we're all supposed to cry and be sad and be heartbroken at the fact that he is being roasted over the coals. Okay, that's one person. Put him aside. So another person that similarly has the same situation is Mr. Jeremy Vine. That name is also another media personality that for the past 2 years has done nothing but have Harry and Meghan criticism, not to the level of Piers Morgan, but he has definitely not been fond. He's been accusatory. Oh, over and over, he would mention how often that he should lose his title and things like this. And now he also sits in a hot seat of accusations about himself and the fact that he feels he's being singled out and stalked and all of these things. And once again, he, just like the other fella, are making a plea that the media should be fair to them and treat them nicely, and that everyone should be sad that they are now in this particular predicament. It is ironic. It truly is ironic. Now, here's a possibility. Okay, I'm just going to throw this out there. It's a possibility that some of these people are slowly being run over by their past behavior, because if, depending on how a court case like this goes, and this is just the Harry portion, but overall, this case of illegal seizure of information about individuals, they may be slowly peeling these people off and basically sacrificing them so that they can then turn their media empires around and distance themselves from what is happening by the media. In other words, the actual media moguls might be peeling off some of these personalities to make it look like they're trying to do better. But anyway, that's just something I want you all to pop that in the back of your head, because it seems a little odd. Now, of course, our favorite, and everyone is standing by waiting for any element of Piers Morgan to falter. But we're going to have to stand by on that. So I'm going to hold off on that, and I'll get back to maybe some of the things he's going to probably have to deal with as time goes on. But Piers Morgan is who most people are waiting for. They just keep hoping that they get to see him flailing. And I can understand why. Now, also, I wanted to mention, if you are able to see the screen, these are artist renditions of when Harry was actually in court, when he was actually talking to the legal representatives. And everyone, of course, commented on the drawings themselves and the level of accuracy or inaccuracy, or how well they were done or how poorly. And I have to say, normally I'm not an art critic, but I tend to agree that these artist renditions are pretty bad. I don't know who did them, but they give off a very comic strip appearance to me. And generally, court sketchers are a little bit more. I don't know. I maybe I don't know, but it's. I was looking at this and I thought to myself, what are they trying to get at with these photos? They look terrible, but I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that feels that way. So anyway, but a lot of people mention the fact that these uh, depictions in these drawings looked pretty bizarre, and I have to agree. I just thought, gee, this is really odd. I couldn't understand it. It seemed very odd to me. But anyway, so here's what we've learned from the court case. There was one day where he did his proceedings, and he talked very much in general about things that were happening in his past, and he talked about a long period of time. I was surprised. For those of you who want to download or look at some of the transcripts, they're actually accessible um, generally on various news station channels, but they're also available in various Squatties community pages. And if I get an opportunity, I too will post some of the transcript information to my community page, but it may take me a while to get it there. But he talked about periods of times, even from his childhood, of things that were occurring and conversations that he can remember having, and how he felt those things were being, what do you call it, used against him. So he mentioned things like when he got hurt playing, I believe it was rugby or football, one or the other. He fell, he hurt his shoulder, and for some reason, the details of that medical situation, somehow that became newsworthy. So there were elements to that specific, um, to his specific medical condition, which interestingly, he explained he didn't want that to get out, not like that, because evidently while he was in school, there was a lot of teasing and cajoling by other students in the school. For example, if you got hurt, or if you had to sit out of games, or if you had to sit out of any kind of physical activity as a kid, and I think, no, we're talking, he's what, 11, 12-ish, as a kid in that environment. Now, everyone, I need you all to kind of drift yourselves back to your middle school days. I know it's hard. But he was saying that basically in the middle school, or in his private school, no one wanted anyone to know that they had been hurt or got sick, because they would start calling you names. Like they might refer to you as sicko, or refer to you as something like, you're a weakling. So generally, the fellas didn't want anyone to know that, right? So if he were talking about that, or if he was having any type of situation like that, he was doing everything he could to only discuss it with his mom or dad on the phone, or if he went to see the doctor. So he basically was saying, I wasn't going to come back and talk about it to everybody or be very detailed with other people. However, specific information about these medical things were happening. Then there's another time that he spoke about in this case, and I think this was humorous. I know all of you are familiar with the term kissing disease, right? When we were growing up, it was one of those things. Oh, so and so's got mono. That's what we used to call it. And of course, they would always say, well, that meant that you were kissing someone else who had mono. It was never that it was because of any other, like a particular virus. You must have been kissing someone, and that's how you ended up with mono. So that was also a situation featured in one of the discussions. This was reported, of course, in a newspaper, that he had some kind of kissing disease. Now, of course, same thing. It's the same type of situation. That is not something that he would have told anyone to say, hey, go out and tell everybody. And he wouldn't have discussed it with people that he thought he could not trust. So here's what's happening in his court case. If you're saying he has not been listened to, or his friends' phones were not invaded, or maybe voicemails weren't listened to where he may have left a message about something. Or if you're saying you didn't coerce a medical professional to give you the details, right? If you're saying, well, the news people can only say one of two things. Either the doctor told us, right? Or someone that Prince Harry trusted told us, which is where the second part, which is where the bigger part of his case is focusing. Where you're now looking at a situation where you realize that this poor 12-year-old kid truly could not trust anyone around him, because at all times, no matter what was happening in his life, it was being broadcasted and made a feature in news tabloids. And that is what is fascinating about all of his cases. That is what's fascinating, because you are seeing that there is no way that people could say that either they didn't know or that they weren't untrustworthy. So you see where he's going with that? I mean, you get it? He's kind of putting it together that way so that we can all follow along with the fact that either he's being followed, surveilled, and listened in on, or he's actually unable to trust his friends and family. And that's where things are getting a little bit tricky. That's why much of the royal family are out of sight, right? This is why they would not even want to be near this situation. Okay? All right. So that's what I want to really focus in on. So everybody pay attention to that. So here are some wonderful keywords from the media. So let's think about these words. Okay, listen, everybody. Check this out. What are the words that you hear throughout the media that are constantly being referred to, or I guess replayed, right? When they talk about Harry in the negative way, right? It's always whatever he's doing is some kind of a stunt. Stunt. I want you to look at how many times you see that word somewhere, stunt. He also whines a lot. Whining. That's another key word. So you see stunt throughout almost every newspaper article. You see the word whine almost throughout every news article. And here's another concept. One, he should lose his title. Now, let's just have some fun with this one. Can anyone explain to me how removing his title changes any of this? How I want someone to explain to me how, should the king remove his title, would anything, what would that change for the British UK? What would that change for the UK? What would that change for the royal family? But you notice they keep saying that. Someone somewhere always comes back to, they should remove his title. And I haven't heard anyone explain how removing his title would be effective in any way. Okay, but yet that's also there. So I want you to keep your eyes open and ears open, listening for that. So what we're seeing is that these things are thrown out to me because if you are an abusive person, you are constantly trying to find items and elements that will bring that person back to you. And preferably, you want them to be contrite. You basically always want this person to come back to you, begging and pleading to be a part of your life. You know, that's generally how people operate. They're weird like that. Now, those are the things that you know, okay, that's abusive, but you don't know why in the world they would want to be this way. However, this is what we're dealing with. Okay, so we're going to switch gears. Now, y'all, I want y'all to keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. Because again, when you look at a picture like this one, you have to ask yourself, if this man felt that he was being listened in on and phone calls tapped, if that's not the answer, if that isn't what happened, then the folks in this picture right here are the people that he could not trust. And the folks in this picture are the people that would sell his stories to the newspaper. Keep that in mind, because that might be why you don't see them while this court case is going on. That may be the reason, because you can only have one of two things, right? So no, and this is the feature of this particular court case, and this is the brilliance of this activity by Prince Harry. It doesn't matter win or lose. It doesn't matter. What he has indicated, what he is putting out here in the world, is my life with the royal family, which these people believe I do not want to give up. And I have told them basically, I'm done with it. I don't want any of it, right? But you have to now believe either these folks were hiding in corners and sneaking and listening to everything he was saying, or that the people that were considered his family sold him out. That's the only way that the information that he's going through right now, that you're going to get it out there. Okay, so also part of the court case, I wanted to mention in some of the other transcripts, and again, I'm going to try to feature some of these transcripts. There is a character, her name is Jane Kerr, K-E-R. Evidently, she is an individual who had to testify about a story she wrote. Now, in the story that she wrote, I just wanted to point this out. It's not detailed, but she indicated that in the story that she was asked, where did you get this information? And her response was quite interesting. She said, oh, I don't know. I don't remember, basically. And then he said, well, how did you obtain these specific details, things that she wrote in the story? And this woman actually said, I don't know, maybe my editor gave it to me and I added it in. And guess who the editor is? Ladies and gentlemen, drum roll. The editor was Piers Morgan, right? So we keep circling back in this particular court case. We keep circling back to certain names and certain characters. Piers Morgan is one of them. So I had a lot of fun reading through some of these things on the transcripts, because guess what? They were not in the British media. When you flipped on the British media and the tabloid press, they weren't highlighting these types of statements. But they kept highlighting whether or not Harry was nervous, or whether or not Harry looked tired, or how Harry seemed like he was sad. They had wall-to-wall coverage of that. But if you had looked for the fact that this woman said maybe Piers Morgan gave her this information, I was looking for that in the tabloids. I was looking for that to be discussed on British TV. So far, I haven't seen it. But this is the type of thing that is happening also in this deposition, because I want you all to be aware that Prince Harry's portion of this deposition is only a portion. There is a lot more coming. Let me tell you, a lot more. Now, also on Twitter, people who are following the Twitter streets, take a look here. This is actually Mr. Charles Spencer. I think he's maybe Lord Charles Spencer. He is Diana's brother. Yes, boy, yes, indeed. And Diana's brother, his life and past had some twists and turns, and there were moments where people felt that he could have done more to support his sister than he did, and he did go through that period of time. Also, he was plagued a little bit by the fact that at her, when they were putting together the funeral, kind of the British people wanted to make sure that the British funeral had a little bit more pomp and circumstance. And that's when the royal family finally gave in and tried to have a funeral for her that was more national. And so he was a key a key, what do you call it, influence in the fact that he did not want the tabloid press invited to some of the events of the funeral, because at one point they were actually going to be at the funeral, I would assume, snapping photos of, of the layout of her in state. And he absolutely refused to allow them there. And that became kind of a controversial issue at the time between him and the royal family. But they finally all agreed that no, they would not allow them there. So, keep that in mind. Now, but here's why he's kind of in the news today, or in the news lately. Someone made a comment on Twitter, as usual, anti-Harry and Meghan comment, something to the effect, Harry doesn't have any proof, and there's no proof that anybody did any wiretapping, yada, yada, yada. And this person, Charles Spencer, which to me was quite surprising, he actually answered back something to the effect, his response was to the effect, the proof is actually the 2,000 plus lawsuits against the tabloids for wiretapping, surveillance, and intrusion. And everyone who is a squatty that saw that reply was in total applause. Because again, they have these mouthpieces out here that are trying to insert into the national site that Harry has no proof, that there is no proof that there is anything negative going on. And yet the example of the proof is his life, right? And this is what's amazing, is that they can continue to say these things while, as a collective, we are watching the actual crime being committed. We are watching the intrusion. However, what they're putting out in the media is that, oh no, there's no intrusion. And we are looking at it. And this is what is brilliant about the media and advertising. They can actually make you believe you're not looking at what you're looking at, right? And so we're going to keep striving to bring other people to that understanding. You don't have to believe a whole lot of extraordinary things. You simply look at it. I asked this question, and you guys, please respond in the comments if you have time. Give me a thumbs up, and please like and subscribe. Don't let me forget to mention that. I'm hoping that I'll get some more subscribers. And please share, especially if I say something that you think is interesting and that other people might want to be listening to. But if not that, I want you all to log in and join in, just because we're going to talk about staying fit as well. But listen, let me go back. So here's a question, and this is something I want you to pass around with your friends. Have you ever heard, or how much do you read about the king being chased by the paparazzi? Or how much do you read about Prince William being chased by the paparazzi? Don't you think, let's take a moment, take a pause. Don't you think it is odd that the actual number one person in the royal family, or the absolute number two person in the royal family, why isn't the paparazzi interested in what they are doing all the time? Why isn't the paparazzi always taking pictures of, the king getting up out of a chair, or sitting down at a table, or driving down the street, or out playing cricket, or whatever? Why is there no interest by the paparazzi in the king? and Prince William. But why is it that instead you're parked in a car outside of the house of Harry and Meghan? And Harry and Meghan are no longer active participants with the royal family. So why are you in the bushes with a telephoto lens trying to take a picture of their backyard? However, the paparazzi is not in the backyard of Windsor Palace. Anyway, please take a moment. Let's think about that. Okay, and again, when the crazy people out here are anti-Harry and Meghan, let's ask them that. Everyone, please pose that question to them. Why are they not paying attention? Why are they not paying attention to the king and the number two in command? Odd, isn't it? Shouldn't they be? Right? Shouldn't they be? But they don't get pap chases. They don't get chased by the paparazzi. It's almost as if no one's looking. Right? So these are the things that are happening. And I thought it was interesting because Charles Spencer had spent so much time in quiet contemplation, kind of in the rear. He actually wasn't focused upon what was happening so much with Prince Harry. But yet, lately, he has shown that he is somewhat supportive. And I think that is wonderful. I think that is very wonderful. So that's another one. All right, guys, we're going to look at one or two more things, and then we're going to stop this show, and we're going to get this show on the road so that you can get off to your errands for today. All right, as I try to get myself back online. Okay, so check this out. The lovely couple, yes, Prince William and his wife, Princess Kate, lovely as they are, they traveled to Jordan to attend a royal wedding in Jordan by the princess there. And so they were invited with lots of other celebrities that attended. But why am I talking about this? Okay, yeah, she looks lovely. I'll let that slide, but I know a lot of squatties will talk about the origin of these colors and such. And they'll give you the fashion expertise. But anyway, as they went, there were several things that were noted while they were traveling. And one was that Prince William was seemingly in a rush to get out of there, or a rush to get on with it, when Princess Kate stepped aside and was talking to, I think it was Queen Raina, the person getting married, the princess getting married, her mother. But anyway, that was entertaining because, of course, a lot of people noticed that. But on the other side were the number of other British royals or relatives that also attended this event. For example, I believe Princess Eugenie was there and Beatrice, which is fine, no problem. They all probably know each other. Many times you will find that many of these royal families worldwide often attend some of the same schools. Sometimes they've been in some of the same arenas. And so they actually know each other on a personal level. So they all attended. But what was interesting in this particular case is that Princess Kate's family, her mother in particular, also attended this wedding. Now, that would be the Middleton family. So people were wondering, why in the world would the Middletons be at this particular event? Who invited them to this wedding? Why were they there? And okay, so listen, I need to tell you all something about what I learned when I traveled in the Middle East. For one, the people who are at the top of the food chain, they are extremely wealthy. Some of the people who are in and around on that at that level, their level of wealth is beyond comprehension. I mean, some of it, when you think about it, being based on oil money or something like that, and then they own everything else in their environment. Their level of wealth is terrific. And the reason I thought this was odd, but I wanted to point it out again, I'm going to throw things out there like like a mom would do. I'm going to throw things out for you young folks to track down and hunt down and figure out. But these folks are so wealthy, in fact, that if the Middleton family was in attendance at that wedding, I would have one theory as to why they would have either been there, even if they were or were not invited. And that would be because having a conversation in and around any of these families, when you're having money trouble, these are a great group of people that might loan you some money. Because to them, loaning you 5 or 10 million, they wouldn't even notice it. That's pocket change for them. And considering the fact that the Middletons currently have an ongoing issue where they are liquidating some of their assets and their businesses have failed, plus, not far off in her family tree, there is some question about legality of businesses. I have no doubt in my mind, although I could be wrong, but I don't think so. But allegedly speaking, I could be very wrong, but let me help you think about something. If you are having massive, massive money troubles, and you can think about people in the United States often that have these issues with money, some of these big moguls, maybe here and there, some names might come to mind, big businessmen like even your former president. But anyway, we won't talk about that because that would be alleged. But generally, when people here run into some of these massive money troubles and they're extremely wealthy, all of a sudden they become very close friends with someone from the Middle East. And they used to become very good friends with Russian oligarchs. That is a very strange and troubling sign, okay? That's all I'm going to say. Let's pretend that I am a fortune teller. But I tell you what, keep your eyes on the news. keep your eyes and ears on the happenings and what's going on with families that are having money troubles in the millions. They quickly become friends of other millionaires. And to me, attending a wedding in Jordan and you just went into a business bankruptcy is very, very odd to me. So that's the angle that I am coming at. And I know other squatties were talking about their visit there being for other reasons, but that's my angle, ladies and gentlemen. So think about that. Okay. I want you to think about that. Because I must say, and I mean, lastly, I'm going to, what do they say? I'm going to emphasize the amount of wealth coming out of that region. If you are having any kind of trouble with money, these are the people that you need to talk to about borrowing a dollar here or there. Okay? So I am going to finalize. Okay. Okay, don't laugh, y'all. Okay. So once again, I'm going to finalize up, if I can get this done correctly, with what the media referred to as Harry wrapping up or Harry's attorneys wrapping up their case. Okay. So if you notice in this slide, this is when they're kind of coming out after their final deposition day. And some of the things that was the finalizing portions of what Harry had to talk about. And his attorney is right there to the left of him and left and to the rear. Okay. And so they're coming out of the court. But of course, it was harrowing. Sometimes he was there sitting and talking for 4 to 5 hours. And he gave out the information. I hope many of you will enjoy digging down through some of the transcripts if you don't want to do it yourself. I must tell you, there are some wonderful, wonderful presentations by some squatties on YouTube that are combing through these things with a fine-tooth comb. So I only picked out that portion that involved the testifier, Jane Kerr, because that statement that she made was, to me, extremely telling that journalists like herself and probably others that will be coming up, They are definitely mentioning the name Pierce Morgan, and they are, in a sense, saying, I don't know what I was doing, but he told me to do it. So we're going to look at how that's going to play out. So as they're coming out of the courtroom, it is said that his attorney has done a very good job. I am hoping, I am really, really hoping that he's a very learned man and a very thoughtful man, because he has a lot more work to do. He will now be going over the statements from all the other people who will be coming through. And there are at least 100 main name celebrities, but that's in other cases. Okay, but there will be things that he's going to touch upon specifically. And it does appear that this gentleman really has his stuff together and he's doing a good job. So we are all going to be rooting for them. I think they're going to be doing a great, great job. At one point, even, there was a headline that mentioned that Prince Harry, the Duke, that he admitted to the fact that his memoir contradicts um, that his memoir was contradicting statements. And so the media, of course, tabloid, let's look at the tabloids, they went along and splattered that headline all across the pages. And here's what they were talking about. They were only talking about the fact that in his memoir, he didn't really mention his mom's butler that much. Princess Diana had a butler, and that butler has been out and about even since Diana's death, Princess Diana's death. That butler had been out and about, doing things, writing books, giving interviews. But one of the key things about this butler is after the princess passed, he, for whatever reason, had gone into her quarters for whatever reason and removed a lot of her personal items and had them at his house. And this is a situation that at the time people thought, well, that's weird. They just figured he was probably trying to sell stuff or create a memoriam or something like that. They just kind of looked at it as a weird kind of thing he did. Took a lot of her personal items. Incidentally, later the queen kind of spoke up for him so that he wouldn't actually, do prison time. But it was just one of those odd type of situations. So from that point forward, Prince Harry, Prince William, they didn't particularly have a lot of love and adoration for her past butler, even though she did. But as they're growing up, they tend to believe that the butler might have been a bit, what do you call it, a bit untrustworthy. But yet this man is still living and he's still out and about writing books, giving interviews, and talking about his time being her butler. But we're not sure about this man. There's something about him that's a little odd. But that was the headline. It was specifically talking about the fact that he didn't mention the man in his book, Spare, as derisively as he had talked about him when he was a teenager. So as a teenager, again, one of these statements that somehow made the paper, that he called this man a two-faced little whatever, right? This ended up in the paper. However, Prince Harry was explaining that he only said that to one person. Like he made that specific statement, that specific quote, he made it to someone else. Like, Mr. So-and-so is a two-faced little blah, blah, blah. And because he said that to a specific person, again, his question was, how did it end up in the paper? Right? So that was a fascinating little tidbit that was going on about that butler. So anyway, we're going to be following what comes out of these statements, because I believe we're all going to then see how some of these things knit together and unfold as other people come on board. All right? Well, oh my gosh, we've been here for an hour. Thank you guys for listening in and listening to me ramble on and on. And I hope I said something that might spark some interest, or that you might want to dig into it a little bit more. I'm going to try to put up a few videos here or there now that I'm back home. I'm going to be doing a little bit more if I can get myself organized. All right. And I thank you all so much for participating in this chat. Feel free to leave a comment below. I would love to hear from you. and love to know if you have any thoughts or tips for me, things that you would like to tell me that I should do more of or less of. And all of us, also, of course, like I said, I want each and every one of you to stay as fit as you can and to report in on how you're doing on your fitness journey, because I'm going to keep trying to jump in on mine. And so, if we can keep this up, hopefully next Saturday, I'll try to jump in again. We'll do another live. I'm trying to make it for Saturday at about 9 o'clock, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you all can join me again, please set your calendars to 9 o'clock or so, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time on Saturdays. And I'm going to try to do another live, and I'll pick up maybe a few more specific tidbits of what's going on. I just enjoy the fact that you all were able to join in and listen to me. And I'm so excited as we are watching these guys navigate this twists and turns of what is being thrown at them. So let's keep supporting the Sussex family. And remember, my view is from the view of course, a mom of adult children. I hate to see my kids going through all these tough things, but what I have to do is I have to say my prayers, and I have to know that guess what? They are strong enough to endure it. I know that they can do it. When I look at my kids every day, I am in awe because they can do it. And you know what? I'm going to be here to support them all the way. Why? Because they are doing the right thing. They are not doing bad things, okay? They're doing the right thing. So if you all please also like my videos, please give me some thumbs ups there. Please subscribe to this channel because I need to learn how to get my numbers up as well. I'm learning. So do that, do some subscriptions, and also share what you see here with other people, and also bring people in from any other YouTube channels that have a lot of things to comment on, because I too love to hear all the news. So thank you all for coming, and I hope to see you next Saturday. Now get out there and get your errands done.